There we go. I'm going to go over the exam because remember the final's cumulative, and some of you did very well on the exam, but if there's questions you missed, you're going to want to see them now. So I'm going to take 10 minutes. It won't take me much longer than that to zip over the exam, and then I'll answer questions. Then we'll do a brief quiz, and then we're going to plow on to more secondary dominance. All right, so let me start by sharing the screen so we can look at the quiz. All right, I think that gives me the screens I need. And there, you all can see the exam. Can you all see the exam there? Beginning theory, yes? Give me a thumbs up. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go through these so you see what the answers are. And so I'm going to go very, very fast, guys, but stop me if you have any questions, right? Because that's the point of this. Okay, so the first question was if I'm an A-flat major, first of all, you have to fill in the key signature. That's 4 flats, A-flat, B-flat, E-flat, A-flat, D-flat. And I think everyone got that part of it right. But then it says, do the leading tone 7th chord of the 7-7. Well, there are 8 notes in the scale. So you can either count up 7 notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or the easy way to find 7 is that the top note is 8. The tonic is 1 and 8. So if A flat is 8, G is 7. So it's just a chord built on G, B flat, D flat, and F. And you don't have to put A flats in because this is a diatonic chord. Remember that word means in the key. If you have the key signature, it takes care of everything. So 7 means exactly that the leading tone is the 7th degree of the scale. I also wrote 7 there. It's the 7-7 chord. So if you're an A flat, it's the 7th note of the A flat scale, which is G. And so you just build a chord, and because it's a major key, we know that the chord is going to be a major minor chord, also known as a half diminished chord. Any questions on that so far? Okay, now the next one's a little bit harder because I'm now in D minor. So D minor has got 1 flat. It's got a B flat in it because it's D minor is the a relative minor of F major. Remember, it's a minor third apart. And so it's, it's also the 6th degree. So if you go from an F scale to the 6th degree, F, G, A, B, C, D, you get to D. So D minor is the same as F major. It's 1 flat. Now we're looking again for the leading tone 7th, and notice I put it in italics. Not just a 7-7 chord, but leading tone. Leading tone means it's a half step up to the tonic. That's what leading tone is. It's a half step. So we have to use harmonic minor. So if I'm an F, by the way, I said that wrong, D minor, right? So 7th degree would be C, but that's a whole step below D. So this one's a C sharp. And that's the only note I have to change, just the 7th degree harmonic minor. It's C sharp, E, G, B flat. And so everything else is diatonic. But the bottom note, the 7th, we have to sharp it to make it a leading tone. So it's C sharp, E, G, B flat. And that is a full diminished chord, or what we call in the business a diminished chord. It's a diminished chord with a diminished 7th. Minor, we get diminished. Major, we get half diminished, which is diminished minor. Anyone have any questions on those? I was sort of surprised that people had trouble finding the 7th degree of the scale. Any questions? No questions? Okay, I'm going on now. This one, I can quickly write this in Finale. I've got Finale open also, but the sense this is let's go to Finale and just do this. So if I move to Finale, could you all see Finale now? I think I've got it. We're supposed to share both. Yes? Okay, and let me just check to make sure it's sharing sound. Okay. Now, so the progression, I'm going to write the progression here so I can see it. If I remember correctly, was 2 in 6/4 position, right? In 4/2 position. And then let me take a quick look. Sorry. Then a 7/7 to a 1. Sorry, 7/7 to 1. And it's in the key of G major. Okay. So that makes 1 a capital. 1 and we're G major. So I will quickly make this G major. Now, this is not as tricky as it looks. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to write the chords in root position. I'm going to do them right over here in treble clef, just so I have the notes. So the key of G, if G is 1, A is 2. So an A7 chord is just, you go up in thirds. There's my A7. The 7 chord, again, if G is 1, F sharp is 7. So here's your 7/7. I'll put that there. I just get my notes here. And a 1 chord of G, of course, is just a G major. So that's got too many ledger lines. Let's put that up an octave. Okay, so now I know what my notes are. Now this one, if we first put the bass in, because that's what tells us. So a 4/2 inversion is the last inversion. It means that the top note is the one that's in the bass. That's root position if the A is in the bass. First inversion of C, second inversion of E, and third inversion is G. And I said both 4/2 and third inversion. So we know that's a G in the bass. I'm just going to put it in there because I know that. That's definition. Okay, I'll put them in half notes to make it easy. G in the bass. The next one's in root position. So it's an F sharp in the bass. And that was done intentionally, as I'll show you why in a minute. And then the last was root position. So it's a G in the bass. So that's half my answer right there. Now, whenever you have a 7th chord, the 7th has to resolve downward by step. Where's my 7th in the first chord? It's in the bass. And it resolves downward. That's why this has to be in root position. Okay, let's fill out the rest of the chord. If that's a G, then what do I need? I need it's an A, C, and E is left. So let's put the C and A in the treble. Could be anything. I just put that up there because it can be C and A. And I'm missing the E, right? So I'll put that in the tenor. Again, the voices don't really matter. And now the next was F, A, C, and E. And my F is there. F sharp's there. So I need an A, C, and E. So that's pretty easy. There's my A and C again. And I'm just missing, what I missed there? F, A, C, and E. So this is going to stay in E. Now, what's my 7th? My 7th is got to be the E. It's the top note. So the E's got to go downward by steps. So I know where my tenor's going. It's just going to go right there. Just E goes down by step. Otherwise, what do I have? I need a B in that chord. And it would be nice if I double the G. That's the easiest thing to double. We want to double the bass when it's in root position whenever possible. And there's my answer. So the G, F, G is required wherever the E is. It can be in any voice. It has to go downward by step. That's the only thing that matters in this. Leading tone is there. It's got to go up, but that's set up by the bass. So that's how you answer that question. Again, guys, you have questions, ask me now. Okay. Now, these things you can figure out by just writing them down, or you can just memorize them. But a 1/7 chord is a major chord because the only major minor chord we have is the dominant chord. And that capital 1 means it's major. So it's got to be a major something. So it's got to be major minor. You don't even major because major minor is the 5 chords, the only one there is. The other major chords are all major. And then all of the minor chords are minor. That 2 with just by its little notes, since we're in a major key, 2 is a minor chord, so that's going to be minor. Now this one is the final one, and I'll just show you. I won't write it out, but I'm going to just first type out the chord sheet. We're in E minor. Now it looks like G major, but it could be G major or E minor, and we know we're in E minor partly because I tell you right there, and partly because it begins on an E and stays on an E. So there's a very good chance you're E minor. So if we look at it, the only inversion is this one. This is a 7 chord. This is a 7 chord. This has a sharp on the 3, but they're all in root position. The only one that's in inversion there, so I can tell you what the chords are. Just look at the bass line. That's got to be E minor. It's a 1 chord. That's got to be a 1 chord, E minor. That's got to be a 7/7 chord because that's on the 7th degree. And you notice it's in minor, so we sharp it. That's got to be a 1 chord. That's not a surprise, 7 going to 1. That this one's in root position, so that's got to be a 6/7 because it's got a 7 on it. That this one's first inversion. That's the only one that's in inversion. So that's an A chord. That's got to be a 4 chord, 4 with a little 6 after it to mean it's a first inversion. And then that's our 5 chord, and it's in major. We sharp the 3rd, which is what we expect in minor. We expect that the 3rd's going to be sharp. That's what that sharp means. It means a sharp 3. So that's just a B major chord, and that's a 5 chord, capital V, 5 chord in the key of G. So if I write that out, it's a 1 chord, it's a 1 chord, it's a 7 half diminished. So I just write that as, oops, got to take my cap lock off. It's a 7 half diminished. So I'm going to just call it diminished 7 like that because I don't have a half diminished symbol. This one here is going, that's supposed to be under that. So I'll move it over. That's going to be a 1 chord. These ones have to be small because my cap lock was on, so I didn't notice, guys. Sorry. And then this next chord is going to be a 6/7. It's 6 is in minor is a major chord. The 4 in minor is a minor chord, so it's going to be a 4 in first inversion, and then you just get a 5 chord. And that's the answer. Now, what do you have to look out for? The 7s have to resolve downward by step, but all the 7s are in the soprano. The 7 here is D sharp, F sharp, A, and C. That's your 7th, goes downward by step. Here, C, E, G, and B. There's your 7th, it goes downward by step. So what do you have to worry about for voice leading? Well, parallel octaves and fifths, of course, and then don't double altered tones. This is a 7th. You shouldn't double anything. Should double. But this one here, double the B. It's already doubled. Then you need a D sharp and an F sharp, but don't double the altered note. So that avoids parallelisms. That's all there is to that question. Then you just fill in the chord notes. So these things are not as complicated as they look. They look terrible on the page, but they're kind of straight ahead. Who has questions on the exam, guys? Questions on the exam? All right. Good. So you'll be ready when we have the exact same questions on the final. Excellent. Now, while we're looking at these things, it's quiz time. Sophie, you've been sick. I'm not going to make you take this quiz, but so just hang out with us a little while we while everyone else takes it, and everyone else take your quiz and give me a thumbs up when it's done. All right. And I'm going to stop the share temporarily. Yeah. Okay. So it's just 5 minutes. We'll all be together. All right, quiz is done. So who has questions on the quiz? Wow, you guys are sans questions. All right. So for Sophie's sake, I'm going to do a 3-minute quick review, and then I'm going to move into some sort of new territory. So let's just do a quick, very quick review. I'm going to share the screen again. So basically, here was the issue. Let's just remind ourselves what happens. We have a lot of circle progressions, like a 2 chord going to a 5 chord to a 1. Oftentimes, you have a minor chord going to a major to 1. Circle progression, meaning that the root moves up by a 4th or down by a 5th. That's a circle progression, 5 to 1, 2 to 5. And in that same circle progression, if you want to create extra power, you add a chromatic note, make an altered chord. You just sharp that third of the chord. Now instead of being a D minor going to G, it's a D major. And the reason this works is our ear hears this D as if it's a dominant, and that's a tonic. So this chord is what we call tonicized. It's turned very, very temporarily into a feeling of tonic. It's still a 5 chord in C, but we feel as if it's a tonic. And this chord acts like it's a dominant of the tonicized chord. So we call this a secondary dominant because it's a dominant of something else, not of the main key. And we write the secondary dominant as a 5 with a slash, and then whatever chord it's going to is written after. So this is a 5 of 5, which means this is a chord that's been changed into sounding like a dominant of the dominant chord, the 5 chord, and the 5 chord has been very temporarily tonicized. It very briefly to our ear sounds like tonic, and then it resolves. And it doesn't have to be a 5 chord that we go to, and it can be in any inversion of anything that's in a circle progression can be turned into a secondary dominant and a tonicized chord. And here we have a 1 chord going to a 4 chord, but so that's a major chord already. We can't change it, but if it's a 1-7, we could flat the 7th and make it a major minor chord. And now that sounds like a dominant chord going to the 4. So now that's a 5-7 of 4. And all these things are altered chords. We had to make a chromatic alteration. And that allows this chord to act like it's a dominant. It makes the F chord, the 4 chord, tonicized. But then the 4 is immediately after you hit it, sounds like a 4 chord. It moves to 5 and 1, just like a normal progression. So it's the way we can emphasize any chord, but make it sound in a very brief moment like it's the tonic by putting a dominant chord in front of it. And we usually have to change one note. Either a 7th gets flatted or the 3rd gets sharped and turned to major. We either take a minor chord and change it to major, or a major chord, we take the major 7th and make it minor, and sometimes both, but that's rare. We can have 7ths on these minor chords too, that when they become major. So we have 5 7s and 5s. And that's what we did last class period. And Sophie, you'll have to listen to the lecture to get the details, but that allows you to sort of get the vocabulary, what we're talking about. Now, writing these chords is a little tricky. We practiced it last time, but if you're analyzing a piece, recognizing them is a little tricky at first, and then it becomes easy. So the first thing I have is some pieces, 2 pieces by Mozart that have secondary dominant. So let's see if we can find them. So let me change the share, and hopefully what you're looking at now is the Mozart Rondo in A minor. Is that correct? Give me a thumbs up if you'll get Mozart Rondo in A minor. Okay. Now, we're expecting there has to be a secondary dominant in here. And there's a lot of chromatics in the top. So it's really hard because that's just B flat to B natural to C sharp to D. That's just a chromatic scale. So that doesn't tell us anything. But what we're hoping, or it doesn't tell us as much as we like, but what we're hoping is that we can find somewhere in here, and let's look at the left hand as the best place, a secondary dominant. Now remember, secondary dominant, you're either going to take a minor chord and make it major, or you're going to take a major chord and make it a major minor chord. So we're either going to see a 7th flatted or a 3rd sharped. So as we're looking at the accompaniment, we're looking for either a sharp or a flat. If it's a sharp, we're looking to see if it's a 3rd of the chord. If it's a flat, we're looking to see if it's the 7th of the chord. If we get that, there's a very good chance we have a secondary dominant. So look at the first 2 lines of this piece. Only look at the left hand, because the right hand, as I say, is clouded up with a whole lot of chromatics. It's hard to see. But look at the left hand and throw in the chat which measure you think has a secondary dominant. Let's see if we get it right. I got to now find the chat. And you can send the message privately so people don't see your answer. By the way, the left hand is in treble clef. Don't be fooled if you're a piano player. That's not a low C at the beginning. That's a low A, just below middle C. All righty. Yep. So we're looking for accidentals in the left hand. There aren't that many of them. Go find them. Tell me where you find a secondary dominant. All righty. I got two answers. We'll wait at two answers, and I'm going to show the answers to you. There's actually only one. There's not two, but you're looking at the right thing. So here, right there, the beginning of the second system, that is your secondary dominant. And why is that? Well, I've got an A minor chord. A minor chord is 1. This, by the way, how do we know we're in A minor? First of all, the title, Rondo in A minor. That's a dead giveaway. Secondly, we're in key of no sharps or flats, so it's either C major or A minor, and it opens on an A minor chord. That's also pretty much a giveaway. But the title, Mozart knew his keys. It's Rondo in A minor. Okay, so we've got a 1 chord here, an A minor chord. Suddenly, we have a sharp. The third is sharp. There's now an A major chord. So if this is a circle progression, we've got a secondary dominant. Well, A is the root of this chord. This chord is a D chord. Now, you could argue it's in 6/4 position, but it's actually because there's a pedal point. The dissonance is not above. The dissonance is that A. It's a pedal point. So it's a D minor chord, D, F, A. And the A up to D, that's a 1 to a 4. It's a circle progression. So that's a 5 of 4, and that's a 4 chord. This is a D minor, so it's a capital 5 / small 4 going to a small 4. So that's your secondary dominant. Now, why is this one not a secondary dominant? It's a sharp third, and it's going to what looks like tonic. It's not a secondary dominant because it's a primary dominant. E major chord, remember in minor, we have to sharp the third because normally a 5 chord is a minor chord. So that's an E major chord. That's a 5 chord going to a 1 chord. A minor is the key. So that's 5/1 in A minor. That's not secondary dominant. That's just plain dominant. This one is secondary dominant because it's going to a 4 chord. It's not going to a 1 chord. So who's got questions? Who wants explanations? Could you see it? No one's going to talk to me today? I got thumbs up. Thumbs up. Okay. So we're beginning to see how this happens. It just becomes a 5 to, okay, that's good. Now, I've got another example also by Mozart. Can you see the piano sonata here, the one that says sonata number 2? Could you see that? If you can, give me a thumb. Okay. I didn't know if it would change. This one also has a secondary dominant. In this one, you have to look at the right hand to find the accident, the right hand. So you notice our clefs are more normal and our basic chords are down here, but the accidentals up in the right hand. But that's not so hard because there aren't a lot of accidentals up there. So we're in the key of F major. You can tell because it's got a 1 flat and it starts on an F major chord. So we're in the key of F major. Who wants to tell me where the secondary dominant is? Throw it in the chat. Correct answer? Yep. I got 2 answers so far. Yep. Okay, so let's take a look at it. It's exactly right. It's in this measure here. We're very suspicious because there's only one accidental. And so even if I didn't tell you there was a secondary dominant, we're ending in the same key. We're in F. We're in F here. So we're not modulating. We're not changing keys. We see an accidental, get very suspicious. Look at what this chord is. It's F A C. That's an F major chord, and then the seventh has been changed to a minor seventh. F A C E flat. So that's a dominant seventh chord. My gosh, that looks like a secondary dominant. And the seventh is behaving properly. It's resolving downward by step. Where does it go to? It goes to a B flat chord. Once again, Mozart puts a pedal point under it to put it in 6/4 inversion. That seems to be how he likes it to work. But he's got a F going to B flat. That's a up a fourth. That's a circle progression. So it's an F7 to B flat. In the key of F, B flat is what? It's the 4 chord again. So this is a 1/7, a 5/7. I'm sorry, a 5 of 4. This is a 4 chord. This is the 5 of 4. So 5/7 of 4. So we write that as a capital V with a 7, a slash, and then a capital 4, a capital V, because that is a 4 chord. And there you go, secondary dominant. You guys, you'll be surprised where you see these. As I said, if you start singing old hymns as opposed to the praise songs, but if you go to a church service where they pull out the hymnal, anything that's more than 50 or 60 years old is almost bound to have a secondary dominant in it. And I think it's kind of fun to just look for that sharp or look for that flat and say, I bet that's a secondary dominant. And eventually it becomes almost a cliche. You can hear it everywhere. You get very familiar with it. It appears in music all over the place. If you're a fan of jazz music, jazz is built almost entirely on secondary dominants. As the jazz guys say, it says, hey, it's all circle progressions. But they just love this. They don't mind chromatic notes, so they're adding these things all the time. You hear it in of course, pop music all the time too. You hear a little less than that. There's a little less chromaticism, but you hear it there too. So these chords appear everywhere. They're great to see, great to get to know. All right. Now, are we all basically clear on this? Okay. So let me ask you a tough question. Let's see who's got the answer. So here are my chords right here, the major scale, right? Those are my C, D, E, F, G. And we've seen I can write a 5 of 4. I've written a 5 of 5. I've written a 5 of 6. What is the one chord that cannot be tonicized? Right, tonicized is the second chord in the progression. We have a dominant, and it goes to a chord that sounds like tonic. Which of those chords cannot be tonicized, and why? That's just a question. Throw it into the chat if you can figure out the answer.
We're asking about what step of the scale, right?
I'm sorry, Daviel, what was that?
We're asking about what step of the scale.
What step of the scale cannot be tonicized? Yeah. Yes. I have one correct answer. That's more than I would have expected, actually. This is a tough question. All right, I'll lead you to it. So most of the time we talk about scales being major or minor. Major or minor. So their first chord is either a major chord or a minor chord. So making a major chord or a minor chord sound like tonic is easy because we're used to them sounding like tonic. What's the one step of the major scale that doesn't have a major or minor chord? Come on, guys, you know that 1, 4, 5 are major, 2, 3, 6 are minor? Yeah, that's right. 7 is the one that doesn't have. Oh, my doggies are outside. Look at that. All 3 of them. My poor daughter. So anyway, so what that means is that the 7 chord, because it's diminished, We're not used to a diminished chord being tonic. We don't have any scales that open with a diminished chord. We'll probably get some in the late 20th century, but we're not used to that. So you can't tonicize a diminished chord. So in major, the 7 chord can't be tonicized. In harmonic minor, the 7 chord can't be when we change it to a diminished chord. Also in minor, the 2 chord is diminished. So right there. So we can't tonicize a 2 in minor unless we alter it, and we can't tonicize a leading tone chord. Anything else can be tonicized. So that's it. That's the major point of that. Interestingly, and guys, if I go too fast, stop me, okay? Because I got so many things. I love the topic of secondary dominance. I don't know why. It just makes me happy. But let's look at a progression here, and I'm going to show you an interesting thing we can do with secondary dominance. If you look at this progression, everything's in root position, and my chords all go up by a fourth. So every chord in here is a circle progression. That means if I wanted this chord to change to a secondary dominant of 2, it's easy to do. I just sharpen the third, right? So I take that top note, I change it to a sharp, and now let me write this down here. Put my text thing down here.
Excuse me, Professor.
Oh, it's not shared?
Yeah.
Ah, ha, ha, ha. Thank you for speaking up. I had done so well up till now. It's on my screen. Don't see why it's not on yours. You know, one of these days, I think I'm going to just try sharing the whole screen, but I think then we get some other trouble. Okay, let's try this again. If you look at this progression here, you notice it's in root position. My root keeps going up just by a fourth. So this is a circle progression. It's a 6 chord to a 2 chord to a 5 chord to 1. Very standard progression. It's a circle progression. 6 is a minor chord, 2 is a minor chord, 5 is a major, and 5 goes to 1. Now I can make 6, because it's a circle progression, I can make this act like a dominant and tonicize the 2 chord just by sharpening the third of this chord. Make this A major instead of A minor. If I sharp it, there we go. Boom. If I do that, hold on a second while I get my text thing in. Then what I've got now, my progression has changed. My progression is now, and tell me if I'm going too fast, guys. It's a 5 of 2 to a 2 to a 5 to a 1. Those chords haven't changed. So the 6 becomes a 5 of 2. Now let's go a step further. Let's say I didn't do that. Let's get that back to where it was. Let's say instead I decided that this circle progression should be made a 5 of. So this is a D minor chord. I have to find the third of it. That's the F, and sharp it. And now I've got a D major chord going to the 5. So now what I've got is an entirely different progression. Let me see. Open this one up. Now what I've got is, oops, go up one. Now what I've got is the 2 chord again, because I made it natural, to a 5 of 5, to a 5, and to a 1. Okay, nothing surprising there. We've done both those things. But what happens if I sharp both of them? What? Say it isn't so. No, I'm sharpening them both. Now we have the most fascinating thing. I just love music theory because you can make a chain of these chords. So let me write down what this one is now. So this one is now a 5 of the 5 of 5, going to the 5 of 5, going to the 5, going to the 1. And why is that? Well, I've got a 5 chord, right? And so I tonicized the 5 chord and I made a 5 of 5 here by sharpening the F sharp. Well, now I've tonicized that D major chord, which I could do because it's a major chord, by sharpening this one and making this one a secondary dominant of this chord. So this chord's a 5 of 5. So this chord is a 5 of 5, going to the 5 of 5, which then has to go to the 5 to the 1. So we can make chains of secondary dominants. Is that clear, guys? One person says it's clear, 2 say it's clear. So from a concept point of view, there's nothing new here. It's just that the notation gets really kind of crazy. And let me make it even crazier because I can. Let's see. I'm gonna make it a little crazier here. Hold on a second. Because I can. I'm gonna add another chord. Okay, so now I'm gonna add one more chord. This was a 6 chord. What if I have a 3 chord in here first? So what's a 3 chord? A 3 chord would be an E in the bass, right? So E in the bass. An E in the bass. I thought I took that out. Okay, and then it could be anything from, it could be an E again in the treble if I wanted it to be, or the tenor, I mean. So let's do that. And then I need a G and a B. So let's put the G and the B in here. And now in the alto. Sorry this is taking so long, but sort of the nature of the beast. So now I've added a 3 chord, but that's again a circle progression, down a 5th or up a 4th. So I can make that one also a secondary dominant and tonicize the 5 of 5 of 5 if I want to. I'll show you how that's done, and I'll play it for you in a second. And so what would this one be now? Oh my gosh, who could imagine? This one is going to be still in the key of C. Let me get this thing down lower so you can see it. Still in the key of C. The first chord is a 5 of the 5 of the 5 of 5. The second chord, yeah, I'll move that all the way over so you can see it. The second chord is going to be a 5 of 5 of 5. The third chord is a 5 of 5, and then you have a 5 and then a 1. That looks terrible on the page, but all I've done is taken a 3 chord to a 6 chord to a 2 chord to a 5 chord to a 1, and I've made them all major so that they've all become secondary dominants. I've just tonicized all of them. And it sounds really kind of groovy. Let me see if I can play it for you. Where's my playback controls? They're hidden. All right. But there it goes. And this would sound better if I took that E and brought it down to the C, made a perfect authentic cadence out of it. So I will do that. Let's hear it one more time. I mean, this is just great. And in fact, yeah, it's just great. How did I miss the E? Move this guy. I'll add an E to it. Hold on, that's why I did that. Let's add an E here. And of course, what I could do here, if I wanted to, is make it a 5/7 chord too. So 5, and then there we go. And again, listen how cool this progression is. So we're in the key of C, but in the first measure, every single chord has an accidental. Every chord is an altered chord because they're all secondary dominants, and every chord has been tonicized and preceded by its own dominant until we get to the 5 chord going to the 1. All right. Now, this looks horrible. 5, the last one there, it doesn't show up. The 5 of 5 of 5 of 5 to the 5 of 5 of 5 to the 5 of 5 to the 5 to the 1. But all it means is that this chord is the secondary dominant of this chord, which is the secondary dominant of this chord, which is the secondary dominant of this chord, which is the dominant of this chord. Ask me questions, guys. Ask me questions. Is it really all clear? Okay, so grab your manuscript paper, and in the key of G, start with a 2 chord, start with a 6 to a 2 to a 5 to a 1. Write them out, Get your bass correct. I don't care about you can write the others as 3 notes in the treble clef. I don't really care about voice leading right now, but write the 6 to the 2 to the 5 to the 1 in G major, and then change them to secondary dominants and label them. And I will do the same thing while you do that. Let's see what kind of luck we have. What I'll do first is I'm going to go to the whiteboard and write the progression for you. Okay, so the progression is what did I say it was? It's a 6 to a 2 to a 5 to a 1, and the key is G major. All right, so we share that whiteboard. Start writing away, guys. All right, one done. Do I have a second done? Okay. Let's take a look at my answer just to see how that goes, okay? So here's my answer. Whoops. Are you seeing finale, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, so the 6th chord is just a G minor chord. Remember, count from G up 6 or down 3. That's a E minor chord. And then you have an A minor chord as the 2 chord, and then the 5 chords D and G. So I wrote the bass in. I wrote with no accidentals in. Then all I had to do is sharp the 3rd. Boom. I have to sharp the 3rd again. Boom. That makes my secondary dominants. And then 5 and 1 don't have to be changed at all. So originally, again, it was 6 to 2 to 5 to 1, but this becomes a 5 of 5. And so this becomes a 5 of 5 of 5. So we have 5/5/5, and this one is 5/5, and this was just 5, and this one's 1. Did you guys get that? Are you understanding that? Feel free to ask questions, guys. Feel free. I love questions. None questions. Okay. So I will load up this and tomorrow's and Friday's what you would call it, recordings, so people can check them out. Now, one more thing, and that's that today, right after this, I'm going to go get my second shot for my vaccine. I'm expecting to meet class tomorrow, but when you get up tomorrow, check your email, because there's an outside chance that I will be, shaking with fever and having the ague like they had in the Middle Ages, and I may not be able to hold class tomorrow. So just check, but assume there's going to be class. I plan to make class, but who knows what reaction we get to the second shot. It's Pfizer, so it shouldn't be too bad, but hey, I'm not taking any chances. So just a word of warning, check your email before class starts. If you don't hear from me, class is on. Or if I don't show up, class is off, but that's hard to imagine. I'll text you either way. All right, everyone, have a great night. I'll get these things uploaded, and then we're on our way. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Good luck
Bye-bye.
tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, ready?